Um, so things wound up being too built up. Is each of these icons there are layers. So you had text layers and the base level, the background layer. It's just layer upon layer upon layer. So depending whether it's fading in or fading out or transitioning or animating, it's kind of like, there's just layers and layers and layers, and it was just way, way overbuilt. And then its usability became a problem. Blackburn 1911, welcome. Glad you're here. So this menu system wound up failing. Now here I'm showing text as a drop down, but most of these, when you clicked on them, they would, have a drop down. They'd have icons, and the icons we hadn't quite got to the point where they were animating, but all the facility was in place to do that. And so it worked very well. It was, very handy. It looked very cool. Everything faded in and faded out, and you could move the mouse across without having to race it like you do in a lot of drop-down menus. It's like, to get over here, I gotta run before it disappears or it goes off screen or brings up a different. I gotta aim, that kind of stuff. So it met a lot of our needs, but in the end, it kind of failed because as you put a drop down icon, trying to put text on top of an icon, especially in a menu system, well, you can't really read the text, or you have to mute the icon, or, it was just kind of a struggle. It's like, icons are nice, but they only kind of convey a sense of what you're doing. And when you're doing menu selections and trying to pick particular things, um, it's very specific. And if you grab the wrong thing or the meaning isn't clear through an icon, you may get confused or pick on the wrong thing and get frustrated. And we want to avoid that. Um, so anyway, we kind of came up, well, there's kind of a choice. You're going to have to use just straight text with no icons and no animation behind it. Text on top of text, of course, doesn't work. Um, or you're just gonna have to do text. And for me, text is kind of boring. And so it's like, all right, well, let's make the icons and we'll put the text off on the side. Um, Actually, that's not right. We decided to do icons. We'll put the text up here in just a common place. So you have one place to look at it, and you can scroll down. And if the icon doesn't make any sense, it will have to use it a few times. But if you're a new person, it's not going to make sense right away. So you kind of have to look at this and see, well, what is it actually? What does that icon actually mean? And even then, what's typed up here, it's kind of like, oh, well, that may still not make sense to me, but the icon and the text makes sense. But the problem is the icon and my mouse are down here, and the text is up here. And then if I scroll down or I move my mouse, it's like, well, shoot, I don't know what I'm looking at. The mouse is down here, the text is up here. It doesn't make sense. Coffee break. Okay, it was a cough break. Um, so in the end, it was kind of like, well, this is, we like the steampunk. We like just the fact that it's themed. We're hoping to have other themes, of course. And the icons, they kind of work as long as they're meant for general categories or generalness. Um, but to separate the text and put it up here was completely unworkable. And then underneath, as I was showing you, the format was just completely unworkable. So even though this was very cool and it worked very well, we decided to ditch it. It kind of breaks my heart because it worked, put a lot of hours into it and it was working fairly well, except for the fact that it didn't really work very well as a menu system. And part of our hope, and you can kind of see it over here on the right side, is file tabs. And put them down the right side here so they're kind of out of the way instead of across the top. You get a lot more files listed. Is file tabs and the file tab system, well, it's really just kind of a variant of a menu system or a toolbar. So part of our drive to say, okay, let's ditch this third version. We're going to go one more time. We're going to make it simpler. We're going to add a grammar so it's accessible. We're not going to do kind of a goofy design, um, like this is, split the text from the icons or where your mouse is, because that just plain doesn't work. And we feel that the file tab system and toolbars and drop-down menus are really the same UI widget, just with different shapes and orientation. At least that's our contention, and that's where we're headed. Um, Iron is, as you can see, doesn't have a sidebar right now. We've got a lot of other things, and project building and debug and status menus. So there's a bunch of stuff. I'm supposed to keep the text large, I guess. Um, so we've got a lot of stuff, but we don't have a sidebar yet, for the project management. But we're intent that our new menu system will take that into account as well, whether it's a tree structure or drop-down menus. Again, they're very much the same widget. And for all the animation that we want to do, um, we want to build off the same technology and have the advantages available all over the place inside of Iron. The other thing you might note too is that you can see me changing pane layouts and configurations, and see some of the 3D animation there. That's supposed to make you laugh in the middle of the night. Um, makes me laugh now. But we don't have a docking system in place. I think one of the older images here, it kind of showed an early, yeah, this one doesn't have it. There was, kind of an early version of a docking system, and we're not quite ready to tackle that one. So in the prototype and in the early versions, we're just going to provide some set screen sizes and kind of go with that, because we want to be able to take a file tab and tear it off and start up a new session or shared sessions and things like that. So we're kind of delayed dealing with the Windows docking thing, and we don't have a sidebar. But it's coming, and in place of the sidebar, I hate to say it, we have search paths, old-fashioned search paths, which frankly kind of do the job, but they suck too. Um, you know, Sidebars like Sublime Text, good stuff. It just works well. It's simple and easy to understand. Notepad as well. So early on, we're not going to have one. We're not going to quite be one of the quite functionally complete. But as I mentioned earlier, it's like I just work in Iron now, and it works well. And you can see one of our mottos is more keyboard, less mousing around. So I pretty much do everything through the keyboard and almost none with the mouse. So a drop-down menu really for me as a seasoned user, a seasoned programmer, drop-down menus are not of high importance to me personally. I get around um, using the keyboard and the command prompt and whatnot much more efficiently than if I keep running over to the mouse and back and forth. So the early development in Iron is dealing with mostly keyboard management. But that doesn't do well for new folks and novice programmers, because it's kind of like, what does this tool do? There's no way to find out right now without a menu system. So menu system is a great way to learn a tool, drop downs, and you just can kind of experiment. And, so actually in between the third and the fourth menu system is, it's kind of like toying with no menu system. And that turns out, yeah, that doesn't work. People can't discover things on their own, and that just doesn't work for us, and it doesn't work for them. Alt-tab makes it work. How funny. I'm not sure why that is. Okay, so we added that bug. So anyway, that is kind of the history between Iron's menu system. We've gone through, we're on our fourth rendition, and it's very early on in its development. And we're going to have that available for the prototype here in June. So certainly if I'd talk less and work more, it would we'll have more done. Um, so anyway, that's some of the history, and we want to make sure, some of our goals is we want to be able to heavily theme our file system. We want it animated. We're added other things. We want audio cues, so like when you're watching the NFL and oh my gosh, the craziness that goes along, at the bottom, the ticker, is just making sound effects left and right. It's like, oh, we got to do that too. And so, I and other people can turn it off, or maybe they enjoy that. I don't know. We're gonna, we have audio inside of Iron. Let me see. Let me restart Iron. Um, I don't know if it's doing that every time because I can't hear it
I enjoy working with people.
as I'm streaming. Yeah, it looks like it played. Let me try it again. I can see it on a meter.
Just a moment.
Yeah, it looks like it's playing.
Just a moment.
So I have no idea what it just said, but
I've
so
just
we've
picked
got
up a fault in the
audio and audio
AE85
cues.
unit.
I mean, we want Iron to,
It's going
when
to
you,
go 100%
file not found, but
failure
do it in a
within
sexy
72
voice.
hours.
It's like, um, it's like, why not? Like to have a little personality and levity. So anyway, our menu system, we kind of, you know, taking lessons from video game front ends and add menu systems. And we could certainly have imported or made use of, you know, canned front end tools from the video game industry, but it's kind of like, nah, we need the grammar and the accessibility. That's not going to be there necessarily themed in the way we want it and whatnot. So, and then some of the other driving constraints for putting together a 3D menu system is it kind of has to be coupled to uh, almost absolutely everything in the tool. So, macros, key maps, snippets, help, how to search, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it has to have a lot of capability. And that's where, like, using the Windows menu drop down system um, to do that becomes very, very cumbersome. You have to kind of get into developing custom menus and working with the Windows operating system. And then you get very, very tied to, trying to couple all of these things to the operating system means you have no platform independence. Okay. So our hope is to independence, something like that, you know, uh, Linux, Mac, etc. Um, tablets. Let's just add that in there too. We can dream. Um, so coupling all this functionality into the menu system, if it were just Windows, would kind of make it difficult to move over to Linux and the Mac. And we do hope to do that down the road and actually make it fairly interoperable. And that's part of why we want to develop our own 3D menu scheme and our own 3D front end, so to speak. Because we want that experience to be the same whether you're sitting on a Mac or Linux. And that was kind of a, it's like, yeah, we don't want to get tied to a platform. We want the experience to be its own thing. And given that our themes we hope to be extensive, this is kind of just an example. This is all programmer algorithmic art. It's all described with numbers. There's no actual 3D modeling has gone on in this tool because I am not a 3D modeler, though that's my background is making tools for video games and modeling systems, working with Maya and Max and all the grand tools. So it's kind of funny that I don't actually have models imported. These are all described with just algorithms. Kind of goofy stuff. Um, so platform independence and maintaining the look and feel from platform to platform is important to us. Um, and these themes, as I mentioned, we're hoping they'll be rather extensive. If we can get some, sci-fi themes, other video games, just name it. We're kind of keen on some kind of a Mayan theme and do 3D stuff and the transitions between themes. Our hope is that even just changing themes will be entertaining. Um, So anyway, that's a huge uh, sidebar and tangent. I hope you enjoyed the history and taking a look at some of the old stuff we had, and understanding why we're kind of tossing it out. It's like, yeah, we used this for a while, not satisfied, so we're gonna move on, and develop new stuff. And it's we're trying to empower, um, programmers in new ways and new thinking. So let's go back to the actual topic here. And it's finding this bug. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, finding this bug here. Okay, so this menu should not, the remaining elements in the menu should not disappear when I delete an element. Excuse me. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So where is it? It's going to be buried here somewhere. I'm going to shrink this down so I can see what I'm almost talking about. And this menu can go away. That thing can go away. All right, and this is where the part where the narration kind of slows down, and I kind of have to, it's odd trying to talk about what's going on inside your brain. Besides being a mixed up picture, it's kind of difficult to articulate that. So I'm trying to recall now. Where exactly was I? Let's go back to the command palette. It'll have some clues. That's right. Menu section missing. Here we go. Menu system missing. Menu missing. Okay, it may not be the best name in the world. So what's going on here, this particular, what I've got is I've got an old menu and a new menu. And I'm trying to reconcile the differences between the two so that the old menu will transition out and the new menu will pick up where the old one was. And the problem is that the new menu is
It can only be
not
attributable to
positioning,
human error.
these things, all these elements here that are remaining, they're not being positioned properly, or their opacity is not being set. And I think it's really about the positioning. So when I take out a menu item, the reason it flashes away is because all of these menu items are not in the right place in the new menu. And the old menu clicks off in the same frame, and the new one is supposed to take its place. So need to chase down why that is happening. And that's somewhere in this little piece of code. No, it's not just in this little piece of code. So this is where Iron is going through, and you can see I'm providing, this is a section, and a section is
It is dangerous to
probably see
remain
it better here in a
You must leave within 2 days.
vertical format. That's interesting, doesn't resize. So a section is, like in a drop down menu, you got a little separator. So this is one section and this is a second section. Okay, and this piece of code here is I've got the new section and I've got its corresponding old section. And it just kind of loops through and says, hey, is there a new one and an old one? Here it's looking for, it's looping through the old section, all the items, the menu items in the old list. And it searches for the corresponding new item in that section, and then it'll find, if it doesn't find a new item, that means the old item has got to be tossed off. So it removes it from the old selection list, and then flings it off into space. That's a menu item, fling. So whatever the transition is set up for, and a certain delay. So this is the part where the old items that are no longer a part of the new menu get tossed up into the sky. So, and then what's supposed to happen, and that's called by menu missing. So menu missing is looking for items in the new menu that are not found in the old menu. And so this one was simply going through and looping through the old list, the old list of sections, finding the corresponding new section, and if there's no new section, it would remove the old one and fling the entire selection into space. And that's like doing this. Wow, that was just a nasty bug. What was that? Oh, that's actually kind of a clue. Did you see the size of everything for a moment? Yeah, see, I'm suspecting the size and the location as being the root of the bug we're trying to chase. So anyway, this is the piece of code that says, hey, I've got a section, a new section that, or an old section that doesn't match a new one. So let's fling it off into space. All right. So that's how all of those go away. And in the meantime, the new menu is doing what it's supposed to. It's supposed to fade the new bits in and then animate them so they face toward you. So that works when you're working with a section, but it's not working, if I understand right. Oops, put the section back in for good. Let me just make that on. Okay. Okay, so adding new things, it looks like the transition is correct. Changing the section or adding or removing a full section transitions correctly, but taking items out piecemeal makes everything disappear and then reappear. So it's certainly the setup of the new menu is what I suspect is the problem. And it's probably not the opacity. It probably has to do with positioning, and sizing is not happening. All right. So yeah, here missing menu goes through each section, flings them off. So this path here is working, where it's saying menu selection. Here I'm using the mouse, which I almost never do. That one is working. I'm sorry. Yeah, flinging off the whole section work. But this one is not. That's the other one. Or it's what's happening after this is not setting, and I'm not doing any return types. Interesting. Okay, so let's look for menu missing. I think that's only called in one place. Yeah. Okay. And for those of you that are watching, it's kind of, ooh, what language is this? Well, this is slang. This is slang 2 actually, and it's a computer language that I wrote about 15 years ago. So looks vaguely familiar. Defining, it's kind of Pascal 8-alike. Defining variables. Here's a loop, a for loop. If statements, function calls. It's pretty much what every language in the world has, except maybe Lisp. Okay, so this routine, iron menu file replace. Let's do a search for that one. File replace.
It is dangerous to remain here. You must leave within 2 days.
Oh wait, where else was it used? Here I'm gonna, like I said, I tend to spread out, and now we're getting small again. So let's do that search again, and just going down. So this is where it's called, and this was kind of a clue last night as to what was going on. So what happens? This is in the after the new menu gets compiled and the user says, hey, yeah, commit to that. And that's what I'm doing when I hit F7. That's what I'm doing when I hit F7. Whoops. Okay, no warnings or errors. You can see that fall down. No warnings or errors. Okay, as I'm committing to the changes to this file, which is being compiled in the background continuously. Actually, only as needed, but in the background continuously. So anyway, after a menu is created, and there's a new menu. It goes in and it calls in this our function file replace, and this is the one that has the problem. And then what happens is comes down here and it unloads the old file. So by the time the new this routine has completed, the new menu had better take over what's being displayed because the old one is getting tossed. Not only are the missing items or the missing sections being flung into the air, the rest of the menu right here is being removed. Um, so that's kind of was a big clue into saying, oh, it's really the setup of the new menus is what the issue is. So let's go back over here. This is our results, find and file results. All right, this is where we were. Yeah, let's go back there. Okay, so what's the input? It's the new file and the old file. So we got the new file, the old file. We're transitioning from the old to the new. And what happens is the new file is there's a bunch of different steps. To once the file is being created, we need to make the graphic widgets, the elements, the on-screen elements. And so that's this first step is it says, okay, let's make up the data structures that are necessary. The second function call here is what it does is it says, okay, well, if I were in isolation, each menu item, how big would I be? So it's kind of the first step in figuring out, well, how wide or how tall should this menu, the whole menu be? And that's what this function does. And then after it goes through, well, let's see, where should each menu item be located? If the menu itself was a brand new menu, where would it be located? And it takes a look at the horizontal or vertical indicator, and there'll be others. We want shapes and hexagons and animated things, so we're just starting with vertical and horizontal. So anyway, if this menu is created in isolation, this would set the locations, and then this is the graphics is actually being restored, kind of like in the DirectX model form. But it's actually OpenGL. OpenGL is the portable graphics form that we're using. We may support it like Vulkan later, but DirectX, nope. And that was part of the reason too why we ditched the previous menu systems is I was supporting DirectX for the longest time, kind of dragging it along with me, and it just became too arduous, and it's not portable, and it's kind of like, Iron performs well, and OpenGL performs well, and there's no reason for us after decades to be tied to DirectX in an operating system, at least not with this tool. So DirectX support not needed and ditched, and that was part of the move from version. Gosh, that was probably the second version from 2 to 3 of the menu system that finally just let DirectX go. And that was an unscheduled coffee break. So anyway, this is kind of the initial setting up of the new menu. And then what happens is it says, okay, old menu, new menu, we need to reconcile things. What of the old goes away and what's new, and where do we want to reposition things? And so, and if a menu, this menu flag says, hey, if there's no new menu at all, well, the old one just kind of like, oh, there's no match between the two. So the reconciliation is saying, hey, the old menu needs to go. Fling it so the whole menu gets tossed. But that's not our case. That's not our bug. We're taking a look, and it's now got to go through the menu missing, which we just looked at, and it's kind of like finding all the parts that are missing in the new menu that were present in the old, and then fling them off into space. And that works. Okay, that's doing the right thing. So our issue is further down. Okay, so if there was a delay, to separate some of the, what's going on is we're passing the delay down. So the flings are delayed. Watch this here, you can see they don't all take off and blast away at the same moment. Oh, there's that bug again. Well, that was a terrible demonstration. Watch it again. It'll start from the bottom up. The down here, build 10 will blast off into space just before any of these others, and it's kind of like an accordion. Okay, let's do that. There you go. So you can kind of see it. Do it again here. Whoops. Okay, so it's kind of an accordion thing going on. Whoop. And that's implemented by this variable called delay. So, and it's passed in, it's an in-out variable, and passed by reference. And if it turns out that as a result of reconciling the old and the new for missing things, and nothing's missing, this delay will come back 0. If it's got to do something, I'm just adding a tiny bit of a delay to give time for these transitions to complete before possibly other transitions. And that's the sliding in, the fading in of the new elements. I keep hitting. Okay, and there's the transition, 1.5 seconds later. All right, 1.5 seconds later, zoop, there they come in. Okay, so that's this delay right here. Let's see, and then, so we've got move menu parts that are still present in their new positions from their old positions. So we're getting close. And this menu matching is it's going to go through and say, okay, of the things that are common between the new menu and the old menu, we want the new menu to pick up where the old menu was. In other words, the old items, they still need to be displayed because this menu is going to go away at the end of the frame, and this one's going to pick up at the beginning of the new frame. So it's kind of like, don't look now. I've changed from old to new, but you're not supposed to know. But unfortunately, that's the bug we're chasing, is the new is not set up correctly. So it's likely we're getting close, menu matching, or it's a case of this menu intro. So it's in really kind of, we're narrowing it down to one of these two paths right here. All right, let me pause the recording.